So, the honest truth about credit card versus debit card is something that I genuinely wish someone had sat me down and explained way earlier, because what I'm about to show you today is going to completely change the way you think about which card you're pulling out every single time you walk up to a register or a gas pump or anywhere else you're spending your money. Now, I do want to be really clear about something right from the start, because when we talk about stopping your use of the debit card, this is not just about cash back rewards or any of that. This is about a legal protection that your bank is genuinely counting on you to never look up, and by the end of this video, you are going to know the exact federal rule that can make you personally responsible for up to $500 in fraud that was never even your fault to begin with. So today you are going to learn why you should stop using your debit card and the $500 trap the banks are hiding from you, and once you see this, I really do think you are not going to be able to unsee it. Why? Now I want you to picture something that happens to real people every single week, which is that you pull up to a gas pump on a Friday night, you swipe your debit card the same way you have done 100 times before, you fill up your tank, and you drive home thinking everything is completely fine. But then Saturday morning comes and you open your bank app and $487 is gone from your checking account because somebody had placed a skimmer on that pump that you had absolutely no way of seeing or knowing was there. And here is the thing that I really want you to sit with, because most of us have been raised to think of our debit card as the responsible choice since it is connected directly to our real money, so it feels safer and more controlled than putting things on a credit card. And I completely understand why people think that way, because that is honestly what I thought too before I actually went and looked at how the law handles this. But the law says the complete opposite of what most people assume, and when it comes to debit card versus credit card fraud protection, the difference is not about convenience. It is about who is legally on the hook to pay when something goes wrong. Now, if you saw our video, Stop Paying the Minimum on Credit Cards, you already know that banks build a significant portion of their profit on the information that you simply do not have, and this situation with your debit card is honestly worse than that, because it is not just a bank policy you are dealing with. It is actually written into federal law that your bank can legally make you absorb up to $500 in debit card fraud depending on how quickly you catch it and report it, and most people are never told that number even exists when they open a checking account and get handed that card. So I want to walk you through a real scenario here, because this is honestly the best way to make this land properly. And the person I want you to think about is Marcus, who is 28, just got his first real paycheck job, and lives in a one-bedroom apartment where rent auto debits on the first of every month. Marcus stops for gas on a Friday night, and there is a skimmer on that card reader that he physically cannot see or detect, and by Saturday morning his checking account has been drained of $487, and when he calls his bank, what they tell him is that they need to open a formal investigation and that the process can take up to 10 business days, which is 2 full weeks before anything actually gets resolved. And here is where it gets really bad for Marcus, because his rent auto debits on Tuesday, and that payment bounces because the money is just gone while the bank is investigating, and so now he is getting hit with a $35 overdraft fee and then a late rent penalty on top of that, and then his electric bill auto pays and that bounces too, and by the time the bank finally finishes their investigation and issues the refund, Marcus is out nearly $700 in total damage from a single swipe at a gas pump. And that is assuming they refund everything, which, depending on the timeline of when he reported the debit card fraud, is not always guaranteed. Now here is what I really want you to think about, because imagine the exact same Friday night, except Marcus used a credit card instead of his debit card at that pump, and the skimmer still gets his card number the same way, and he still wakes up Saturday morning and sees a charge that is not his, but when he calls the bank this time, they tell him one thing: they are removing it, and that is the entire conversation, because the money that was charged belonged to the bank on that credit line, not Marcus's own cash sitting in his checking account. His checking account never moved, so rent paid on time, electric paid on time, no overdraft fees, no cascade damage, zero stress, and I want you to really understand this. Marcus did not make a money mistake that Friday night. The system was simply designed to put his money on the line instead of the bank's, and that is the trap that nobody tells you about. So why does federal law treat two pieces of plastic that look completely identical in your wallet so completely differently from each other, and why does the bank seem perfectly fine with you going your entire adult life without knowing this? Here is the part that I genuinely think banks are hoping you never stop to look up. When it comes to credit cards, there is a federal law called the Fair Credit Billing Act. meaning the bank fights fraud using their own money, and it caps your personal liability at $50, but every major credit card issuer has already voluntarily brought that number down to zero, so you are at $0 personal responsibility and the bank absorbs the entire loss while they investigate on their end. But when it comes to debit cards, the law governing this is called Regulation E, or the Electronic Fund Transfer Act, and this is where the numbers get really uncomfortable because if you report the debit card fraud within 2 business days of discovering it, you are capped at $50. But if you report it anywhere between 2 days and 60 days after your statement, you can be held personally responsible for up to $500, and if you miss that 60-day window entirely, your liability becomes unlimited with no legal ceiling at all. And I want you to think about the fact that most people do not check their bank account every single day, so that 2-day window is almost impossible to actually hit in real life. Why? Now, the reason the cash flow situation is so different between these two cards comes down to something pretty straightforward once you see it, because with a credit card, the disputed money belongs to the bank while the investigation is running, so your actual cash stays in your checking account the entire time, and you can keep paying your rent and your bills and everything else without disruption. But with a debit card, that disputed money is your money that has already been pulled out of your account, so you are sitting there with nothing while the bank takes 10 business days, and there is no guarantee of exactly when or how much comes back to you. And this is also part of why banks actually like it when you use your debit card, because they carry no fraud liability on their own books. They do not have to fight chargebacks on their end, and every swipe you make on that debit card puts all of the risk entirely on your side of the table. Why? So what I personally want you to take away from this and actually start doing is switching every single transaction you would normally put on your debit card over to a credit card, gas, groceries, your phone bill, coffee, everything, and then paying that credit card balance off every single week directly from your checking account so it never carries over and you are never paying a single dollar of interest. Now, I know the concern people have here is overspending once they make this switch, but here is the thing. If you only spend what you actually have in your checking account and you clear the balance every Friday, you are not really using credit at all. You are just using the bank's fraud protection for free while also getting cash back on money you were already spending anyway. Why, in my head is just free money you were leaving behind every time you swipe that debit card. You were never bad with money. You were just never told that 2 cards with the same logo can play by completely different legal rules. And now that you know, you can make the system work for you instead of the other way around. Next Sunday, never decline a credit limit increase. The phone call that boosts your credit score in 30 days without changing a single thing about how you spend. If this video saved you from a fraud nightmare you didn't see coming, hit subscribe so the next one shows up in your feed. New lesson every Sunday, one nut at a time.